Wikipedia is complicated. It's a complex environment and a complicated one, and so questions will arise for you as well as you start this work. And don't hesitate to ask us as we go. I'm going to share my screen and start off just with talking about Wikipedia itself. So the first and foremost, Wikipedia is a community. It's a global group of people who volunteer to work on this encyclopedia. And remembering that it is a community will help you understand why people do the things they do, and also help you, get involved as you go. So Wikipedia is also an encyclopedia. It's a free encyclopedia. It's quite large. It's in over 300 languages. So we've touched on, different languages already just a bit. But there's over 300 language editions. They're all independent. They're not translations of each other. So they're not translations of the English Wikipedia, which is the biggest, or the German Wikipedia or the French Wikipedia. Every language community is developed independently. And there's hundreds of thousands of people who work on Wikipedia. In the English language edition, there's around 40,000 active editors. In other languages, that number might be quite a bit smaller. So one thing to remember is if you're bilingual or trilingual or multilingual, there are many language editions that need a lot of work and need editors and could really use your help. Wikipedia is open to everyone. It's available for anyone to get started in, but there are a lot of guidelines that have grown up over the years and sort of built up and accreted as we've developed the project. So I'll be talking about those. And in the English language Wikipedia, there's just over 6 million articles now, or 6.1, I think, million articles. And the Wiki project Climate Change has tagged about 2,500 of them as being about climate change. But that is a substantial undercount. For one thing, there are many articles, as we've already mentioned, about different geographies, about cities, about various topics that need information about climate change impacts on that topic or on that place added to them. So, so there's a lot to do, is what I'm trying to say here. Like I said, Wikipedia is available in many, many languages. Every single one of these editions is built up by volunteers. And to get started, one of the first things that you'll want to do is create a username. And I know that this went out already in some of the emails and other documentation, but I just wanted to review if you haven't yet. What you will do when you create an account on Wikipedia is you'll go up, you'll go to Wikipedia, and then you'll go to create account up in the right-hand corner of the screen. And you'll choose a username that can be your real name or a pseudonym. Most people use pseudonyms of some kind on Wikipedia. You want to put in a password, and then you want to put in your email address. That's very important because that's the only way that we have to get your password back to you if you lose it. So put in an email address and then register. And then that is the account that you will use on any language edition of Wikipedia, but also Wikimedia Commons, where the photos are stored, and all the other Wikipedia projects as well, Wikimedia projects as well. So create an account and then take a look at an article. And so at this point, I'm going to actually stop presenting and just go directly to Wikipedia. So one thing on Zoom, because we are on Zoom, I will enlarge my screen, but there's also an option at the top of your Zoom window that says view options, and you can change the ratio of what you're seeing. So if this is too small for you to see, you can try making it bigger there as well inside your Zoom window. So what I want to give you, because we do have lots of new editors today, is just a quick tour of like the interface of Wikipedia and how to think about articles as an editor. I know that some of you have edited, and this is going to be a little bit of a repeat for you, but for people who haven't, you have probably read Wikipedia articles in the past, but you might not have thought of them as an editor. And so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you a little tour of the editing interface. Then we're going to make some changes together here and now. And then I'll turn it back to Elizabeth after I go over some of the policies that you'll want to keep in mind when you're making changes. So here is the article about climate change. This is actually quite a long article. It's actually a featured article in the English Wikipedia, which means that it's been reviewed by other Wikipedia editors. And one thing to notice is, like I said, it's quite long. There's a table of contents, and you can see there's many, many sections. And one of the sections that you pay attention to the most as a Wikipedia editor is actually way down here at the end. So you may never even look at this very much as a reader, but as an editor, you want to look at the sources that are cited. So the sources, and underneath this are going to be, well, there's more sources. There's a lot of sources in this article, but there's going to be notes in this article as well. So here are the footnotes in this article. And there's also, and I know this is hard to see on Zoom, I apologize for the scrolling, but there's also this section See Also that links you to other related articles. And you'll notice there's links here to things, the climate change portal. These are pages that we've developed on Wikipedia to try and organize these pages. So as an editor, you'll want to scroll through the entire article and sort of see how it's constructed, look at all the sections, and look at the notes at the end, the references and notes at the end. The other thing that you'll want to pay attention to is up here at the top. So I am currently logged into Wikipedia. So my username is Phoebe. I've been doing this for a long time. So my username is just my first name. But my username is Phoebe. I'm currently logged in. And you can see my information across the top of the screen here. So here is my username. And let me know, by the way, someone on the organization team, if you cannot see this on Zoom. You'll see where my username is linked here. This is a link to in my user page. So everyone who has a Wikipedia account can make a page about themselves. Just as an editor, you might say, I'm interested in climate change, or I live in Nigeria, or something. I have, again, quite a long user page because I've been doing this for a long time. The other thing that I have, though, is this talk page. So you can see it here where it says talk, or you can see it here where it says, you have new messages. So if I click on this, you will see the messages that other people have given me. And I have lots of newsletters and things, but for instance, here's a message that someone left me about a video that I had added to an article. And this is a place for people to converse about the edits they are making. Okay, let's go back to the article. And I'll come back to the rest of these tabs in a second. So we're looking at the article here. Again, I'm logged in, which means that when we're reading across the top, I'm going to see a few more tabs than you will if you're not logged in. So article is to read the article. The talk page for the article is just what it suggests. It's a place to discuss the content of the article. And so this page has quite a long talk page. In fact, there's such a long talk page, it's been archived. And there's all these messages at the top. When you see a talk page like this, what it tells you is there's a very active community of editors working away on this article. And you might want to add a section on the talk page before you really dive in. You know, you can ask questions here. You could say, you know, I think this is wrong. I want to add another reference, it's etc. Sometimes when I'm going through articles, if I don't know how to fix them, but I feel like there's something that needs to be changed, I will just add a section on the talk page and say, you know, I think that this could be improved. Someone should work on it. Because the talk page is a place for people to coordinate who are working on this article. Okay, so reading across, we're back at the article now. Reading across, there's the read tab, that's for reading the article. And then I actually have 2 edit tabs. We can show you how to set this up. You will probably only have one. But the edit tab is where you change the article. So we'll come back to here. View history is to view the entire page history of the page. So every change that is made gets recorded. And so this is important for a couple of reasons. One, it means that you can always go back to a previous change. You can always, if you make a mistake or something goes wrong, you can always reverse it. It also means that other people can like reverse changes and they could reverse your changes. So again, if something goes wrong, if it doesn't quite match with policy, someone might revert that edit. But the main implication for you is that you can't make a mistake. You cannot break Wikipedia. It is not possible for any of you to break Wikipedia because every change is saved. And so they just stack up like pancakes, right? So you can see the entire version of the article. And so in this article, you can see this last edit was made by Femke, who I think might even be on the call here. And they added a little summary about, you know, the change that they made. There's even a little conversation going on in the edit history of this article. And you can see the date. So these edits were just made just a few days ago. You can see who made them and sort of how much changed. This is a measure of the bytes. So you can dig through a Wikipedia article history and do like a little forensic anthropology here to figure out how an article was constructed over time. You can also, I'm going to click on the oldest here and go back to the very beginning of this page. Oh, again, I know this is hard on Zoom, I'm sorry. So this page was created in 2001. That was only a couple of months after Wikipedia was started as a project. And it was actually a pretty big article back in 2001. This is surprising, but it was nothing like what it is now. No figures, no references, no, you know, sections about global warming in the world. So my point here is that articles evolve over time, right? They change and they evolve over time, and you are contributing to that process. Wikipedia is never finished. Articles are never finished. They continue to grow and improve over time. Okay, so I think there's a question about finding different language versions. I just want to show you that really quickly. So if we go here again to the article page, the current article version, if you scroll down on the left here, you'll see all the different languages that this article exists in. And we can click this 127 more and get the entire list. So again, this list, these article versions, these are not translations necessarily. So let's actually look at the Swahili version. So this is the Swahili Wikipedia. And here's the article about climate change. And you can see it's quite a bit shorter in Swahili than it is in English. There's work to be done here. So if you speak this language, your account will work. You could log in and start to edit. The same is true with all these other languages. You can compare different versions and see, you know, here's the French version, here's the Spanish version, here's the Slovenian version. You could compare different versions and see how they look. So I want to edit an article with you all. And I'm going to move on to this page. My friend Alex Stinson suggested this. So one thing that we are going to suggest to you is that you work on adding information about climate change in particular geographies. So this is the article about Jakarta, the city, and also the area. There's a few things to know about Jakarta. Some of you might be from there. But there's a few things to know about this article about Jakarta. One is that despite Jakarta being at extreme risk from climate change and from flooding, there's no information about that risk in this article. What there is there is a section about the risk of flooding here and the risk of sea level rise. So there's a sentence, additionally, Jakarta is sinking up to 6 inches per year, 17 centimeters per year, which coupled with the rising of sea levels has made the city more prone to flooding. Okay. And then if we scroll down here, so again, I'm looking at these sections. If we go down to geography, there's also this section about how Jakarta is prone to flooding. And also how Jakarta is sinking. There's quite a bit of subsidence. Now, how I approach editing Wikipedia, primarily it's a research project for you. It's a writing and a research project, but you have to get the information from published sources before you add it to Wikipedia. That's super important. So what I do when I look at a topic like this is I do some research. So I search in Google, I search in library databases. I'm a librarian, so this comes naturally to me. I search for news sites. I search for published information because we're not writing from our own experience. We're writing as researchers on Wikipedia. So I have looked for some articles here, and I found several. You know, I found this BBC News article about Jakarta sinking. I found this academic article about climate change and Jakarta and moving the city to Borneo. I found this Jakarta Post article. So this is the English language newspaper, and this you know, says that the environmental agency in Indonesia is saying that the flooding in Jakarta is climate change related. Okay, so this is a pretty good article. And these are the kinds of sources you want to look for. You want to look for academic articles like this, or you want to look for, this is, for instance, an NGO report from, who is this from? One of the UN agencies, I think. So things like this are good sources, right? So I'm going to start with citing this newspaper article. And bear in mind, I don't speak Indonesian. I've never actually even been to Indonesia. But the point is here, I'm doing research into what is published and sort of summarizing it and compiling it. And so you need your source, then we'll go here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click this edit link in my section here. And it's going to load the visual editor. And so right now I am editing the article. It's sort of like a Word document. I'll try and make it a bit bigger so you can see. Oh, it's very big. I'm going to have to make it just a hair smaller. So right now I'm editing the Wikipedia article. I can just start typing. And it's like a Word document, right? But I don't want to do this. What I want to do is actually add a sentence. So, and the citation. So I'm going to find the place in here where I want to add a sentence. So let's say, I want to add a sentence here. This flooding is related to climate change. We'll just put that in there. Now, if you were doing this, if I was doing this, I would probably try and make a better sentence. I would try and probably make a sentence that was more integrated into the paragraph here. I would do a little copy editing. I would work on the grammar. So another thing that you can do as an editor, even if you don't know the subject, you could read a paragraph like this and say, okay, does this make sense to me as a reader or not? And I'm going to edit it to make more sense, to be more readable, if not. But I'm going to add the sentence. And then I'm going to add a citation. And this is the crucial part here. So I'm going to go up to this cite button. And it's going to offer me a few options. The automatic one, you can just paste in a URL. So I'm going to put in the news URL and see if that works. You could also put in a DOI for an academic article or an ISBN for a book. This seems to have worked. So I'm going to then insert that citation. And the reason I'm doing this, the reason we have to cite articles is you don't know who I am. I don't know who you are. And if I'm reading the Wikipedia article, I don't know who added this particular piece of information. So it's very different from like publishing a scientific article where you're saying this author has expertise. We're just relying sort of on the sources that are given here. So I'm going to add that. And then I'm going to go up in the corner and hit publish changes. And don't be scared by publish, the word publish. It's the same as save. And you'll want to save a lot. I tend to save after every edit. So if I make a sentence like this, add a citation, then I'll hit save again. I'll hit publish again. What happens is you get a little box like this that's your edit summary, and this is for other editors. This shows up in a bunch of places. This shows up in your page history. So I might just say added sentence about climate change. Let's hit publish changes. And this is going to save now, and it will then show up in the article. And it's live. So if you go to the article now and you read it, it's there. There's no editorial process. No one looks at your edits. It's not vetted by anyone. And in fact, if we go to the page history now, you will see that this last edit that I made, added a sentence, shows up as the most recent edit. So that's editing in a nutshell. That's all you have to do. You go to the page, you click the edit button, and you add a little bit of information or you change something and you hit publish. I want to show you just a couple more things and then we will switch here. So one thing is when you're in this interface, there's many formatting buttons up here that you can use to make things bold or to insert bullet points. You'll mostly be using the citation button and this linking button to add links to other Wikipedia articles. The other thing that you can do is you can switch to the source editor. So this is what my other tab is here. You can switch to the source. So if you are a programmer, or you work in LaTeX, or you ever learned how to write HTML, this will be quite familiar to you. This is the code that produces the article that we are looking at. So all of this code that we're looking at right now makes the box on the right-hand side. And then if we scroll down here, you can sort of see how it's formatted. Jakarta, officially the special capital region of Jakarta, is the capital of Indonesia. And if we go back to read the article, you can see that first sentence, Jakarta, The special capital region is the capital of Indonesia. So you can sort of, if you need to know how the formatting works, you can piece it together a little bit. And we're happy to answer questions as well. Probably one of the biggest issues is figuring out what to do. That's why we've made a list of articles. The other thing you can do is look in the articles themselves. So in this case, there's this other article, Flooding in Jakarta, which I actually have open here. This is a more narrow article. This is only about the floods. But there's no mention of climate change in this entire article, even though Jakarta has been flooding for decades. And you'll see this message, the article's lead section does not summarize the key points of its contents. What this means is this paragraph should summarize the rest of this article. So this is a good task for someone on this call to do. It's relatively easy, and you don't need a lot of specialized knowledge to write a good lead section. So I would encourage you, when you're starting out, don't edit the main climate change article that's actually locked to new editors anyway, but edit, one of these topics about a specific topic or a specific place that you can really get into here. The last thing I want to talk about, and I'll actually go back to my slides for this, there's a few policies that I want you to remember. So Wikipedia, like I said, it's a community. And when we edit Wikipedia, you're sort of doing it under this umbrella of policies. So no one reviews your edits right away, but they might look at them later and say, okay, I don't think this edit matches Wikipedia policies. And so here are the things that you'll want to remember. The first, the biggest, is to cite the information that you use. Always, always, always add your sources. And for climate change, that might look like the IPCC reports. It might look like a newspaper article or a journal article. Another important policy is to always write neutrally. So Wikipedia has this thing we call neutral point of view. What that means is don't overweight minority views, right? So in climate change terms, in the US, of course, as you probably have heard, there's a contingent of people who deny climate change, but they are in the minority, right? And so we can talk about their views on Wikipedia, but we don't overweight them, right? We don't make the entire article about them. It also means that you want to make sure that you're reporting on published research and not the new conclusions that you or someone else is drawing. You want to be aware of conflicts of interest. And I know everybody who's introduced themselves in Slack has really impressive work experiences. And, there's lots of academics here. So many knowledgeable people. So what this means, though, is that you can write about your areas of expertise, but don't write about your own organizations, your own universities, your own research necessarily. If you're citing works on a topic that you're very close to, you can cite your own work, but also make sure that you're looking at the big picture and citing other people's work as well. Wikipedia is not meant to promote anything. It's not a CV. It's not a place to advertise. And your edits will be reverted. They'll be changed back by other people if it seems too much like advertising. And then lastly, one thing that you'll notice as you go along is that all articles sort of look the same. And that's because there's this extensive manual style. And you don't have to know the ins and outs of this. You just have to know that there is a style that Wikipedia uses, and you can sort of follow other articles. Part of what that means is like a good introductory section that summarizes the article, references at the end, notes at the end. For scientific articles, you don't want to be too technical. You want to be accurate, but not too technical. But you also don't want to be too casual. It's kind of a formal style of writing. And so, again, if you have questions about formatting, about anything as you go along, don't hesitate to ask us, but this is kind of a general thing to keep in mind. And then very lastly, we are a community, so be a good community member. And part of what that means is nobody owns these articles. Just because I worked on an article doesn't mean that I have a particular say over it. We use the talk pages to collaborate and to talk about changes. And so the other side of that coin is don't take it personally if somebody does undo your work. It's not about you as an editor. It's sort of about the process of Wikipedia. And do make notes of problems as you go along, because we're continually improving the site and working on it.